Technology Tuesdays. I want to shift gears a little bit because you're young and on the edge of technology. I know, like you got this, your website's sharp. Your wealth, multifamily wealth podcast is like top end. So I know you got your finger on the pulse of technology at some level, even though ironically your bread and butter is being on the street and knowing how to do things. But I'm going to ask you, with what you're seeing these days or how you're operating your business and working with Peter, who's super sharp and young as well. Like, what do you think about technology? Like, what's a big technology you're either using, something you're doing with technology to help your job become easier, or something you see that might be disruptive to the industry?
It's a great question. I think my mind immediately goes to what we're doing on the property management side. I think property management, in terms of getting face-to-face with residents and operating buildings, is the components of the real estate business that's going to be disrupted soonest by technology. I mean, it already has been over the last number of years. But when we think about raising capital, underwriting, et cetera, doing deals, raising money, that stuff is hard to automate, right? It's obviously hard to automate the process of identifying value add opportunities within a building or getting in front of another buyer or underwriting that effectively. Like, yeah, maybe underwriting, you have your financial inputs and then it spits out some kind of projected returns. That stuff will probably be automated. But deal making, raising money, establishing partnerships, that stuff is still, technology hasn't really disrupted that. But as it relates to property management, which is a much more systematized, process oriented, and automated business in general, that's where we're seeing a lot of help there. So a couple of things that come to mind. We use a platform called Notion, which is basically an information hub. It's a store for information. That's where we have like our knowledge base, right? All of our how-to videos in our property management company. That's where we store all of our documents. That's where all the information for our properties lives, in addition to our property management software. And Notion is a company that is very quickly leveraging artificial intelligence. So, for example, something that we can do there is, you're in the dashboard and you're a new hire in the management company and you need to figure out how to process a rental application or assign a work order on the maintenance side, what have you. Pull up Notion AI and you just type in, how do I process a rental application? And AI goes in and finds the exact video and serves it up and actually provides you the answer on how to do that. So there's different kind of spots there where AI is helping us as it relates to employee onboarding, employee training, and just making things much more streamlined from an operational standpoint. The other thing that comes to mind is what we do on the leasing side. We primarily do self-showings for all of our apartments, which is something that I think a lot of people are like, really? What are you talking about? But we use a platform called Tenant Turner. When a listing is live and it's on Zillow, it's on apartments.com, wherever, all interested traffic is directed through Tenant Turner, and tenants have the ability, or prospective tenants have the ability, to schedule a showing between 8 a.m. and 8 p.m., right? So it's a 12-hour day, which gives people who are going to work between 9 to 5, when most people or when most companies have their leasing agents on staff and kind of working, we give people the ability to schedule showing outside of that. And then they go there, they get the code to go walk into the apartment. They can walk the apartment. They can take a look at it themselves at their own pace at a time that's convenient for them. And there are security measures behind the scenes. Like, we grab a picture of their credit card and ID, right? So we have we're doing some level of diligence there. They have to go through a preliminary quick background check to make sure that they would qualify for the apartment. Or they have the option to schedule with an agent, right, with one of our leasing agents, and then they can go and accompany them. But we're able to process far more showings in a short amount of time and minimize our overhead from a staff standpoint. And we could probably do 10, 15 showings of an apartment within a 7-day period of time instead of less if we need an individual there, which for us is huge because we manage a bunch of scattered site buildings. If you have a 200-unit apartment community, you can have the leasing agent in there every single day, and it makes sense from a personnel standpoint. But when the same 200 units are spread across 30 or 40 buildings around town, it's really hard to hire for that from a staff standpoint. So we're using a lot of tech on the leasing side, but really just the property management business in general. AppFolio is our PM software. They're doing a lot with AI as it relates to automating different components of the move-in process, the move-out process, the renewal process. the maintenance process, right? A tenant can, even just the leasing process as well. If it's done through Appfolio, they have a lot of AI chatbots where somebody sends a couple messages to to an a bot or whatever, artificial intelligence, and then it can answer some questions about the apartment. There is parking here, hot water is included or whatever. So that's where we're spending a lot of our time adopting new tech. Not really doing too much on the investments business, right? Which is what I define aligned real estate partners, the find deals, the raise money business, outside of some software to help to kind of help provide updates from an investor standpoint, to help the actual capital raise process, e-sign, all that stuff. InvestNext is what we use for that. But PM property management is I think where a lot of those new platforms are being really adopted right now.
Oh, good. That was very insightful. Thanks for going through that, Axel. That's the property management side, because that's one of the things I wondered about with your portfolios as I see them, because the idea of having scattered numbers of small units goes against what was conventional for many years. Like in my time reading Ken McElroy's ABCs of real estate investing, he's a master of multifamily, but one of the first things, especially stuff written in the 90s and early 2000s, is you got to centralize your property management in a way that makes sense. But having these tools to let people view things on their own, having some AI to answer what would be otherwise mundane questions. The Notion, I'm familiar with Notion. We use Monday.com now. We did use Reich before that, but same kind of concepts. I'm a big believer in that. And training people, pulling up those videos, the things that work like that to make sense. And then the last thing you said, well, InvestNext is a good platform. I know those guys out of Detroit used that back when Permanis was one of the first partners, because Michigan based, and they're doing really well now. So glad to see you're using that. So you're fully engaged on the technology front with that, and it makes more sense on the property management side for it to take hold more there first, and then transactionally, as opposed to these big relationships that you have to have with people to, when you're caring for their money. You don't want too many AI bots involved on that side.
Yeah, exactly. And the only other thing too I'll mention, there's a lot of conversation around smart tech within apartments, smart thermostats, smart locks, all of the different kind of fancy upgrades you can make to an apartment. And it's funny is, like, I know a couple of guys who run very large management companies or are very large owner operators of Class A real estate. We're talking like big buildings downtown Boston, where average rents are in the 4,000 plus range. And I've had conversations with them like, you guys doing anything on that front? And they're like, no. And it's very intentional in that they don't a lot of, I think folks, maybe I'm just broadly categorizing people in Silicon Valley or whatever, people who are in the startup community that are trying to identify places to revolutionize the physical aspect of real estate. We can make these upgrades to your stove, your microwave, your thermostat, your lock, your whatever. All that stuff is cool. It's nice, but it makes for management challenges if it breaks. It increases the operational complexity from a property management standpoint. So I get asked a lot. I was like, are you guys doing anything cool? Like when you're renovating apartments, it's like, no, it's stuff that is tenant proof, that isn't complicated, that's easy to maintain, that does not increase the number of maintenance calls that we're going to get to our property management company. And I think that is actually where it's going to take a very long time for tech to be adopted, because large owners and operators of real estate, large management companies aren't looking to do anything in their apartments that increases the operational complexity. It's just not something that I've personally seen a lot of folks want to do, because it's, we're trying to simplify operations, not further complicate them.
That's interesting. I would have expected a lot of Boston place. Boston is often at the forefront of technical things, right? Historically. So I would expected a few of them to be more on that edge. I know a guy in Kansas City that retrofitted a whole building downtown, and I talked to him extensively because we were thinking about doing it for a 450 unit in Ann Arbor, Michigan. And we went pretty far in depth with how we would do that. And we talked about how, the Internet of Things within inside of it. And I guess if you if you do it from the start and you do it for a whole building, maybe it can be, in terms of not having to change the locks again, in terms of being able to see when something goes wrong behind the wall, because you have all these sensors in place. But a lot of it is just about having sensors everywhere that tell you when something goes off. So it will be interesting to see how that evolves and which places adopt it or not. Hey, thanks for having me on. If anybody else wants to find out more about what we're doing, please come to froggycompanies.com. Check out our 3 different business areas. We also have the Froggy Fund 1 that's now open for up to $18 million. We're going to be investing that $18 million across a diverse number of assets, cash flowing and ground up. And I'm really excited about this fund and really confident that we can outperform most of the other people out there in terms of what we invest in and how we do our due diligence and the type of partners we put together. So it's great talking to you, and see you next time.